there's always a limit on population growth. Resources, whether they be space, food, anything, water, could be anything. But there is always a limit, there is always pressure. And this pressure causes only the fittest individuals to survive. Darwin then realized that because traits were variable, I mean, obviously look at people. People are all different from each other. We all have different sized noses, mouths, whatever, different traits. Those traits can be passed on. Look at family resemblance. Families obviously have similar traits. And the fact that only some individuals survive means that nature itself selects for individuals in the same way that man selects for traits when he breeds dogs or pigeons. The fact is, nature is far superior to man in doing this because it has an incredible span of time to work with, billions of years to throw around. However unlikely you think evolution is, that, say, something small, like a one-celled insect, could grow into an elephant, just give it lots of time. Give it an infinite, almost, like a billion years is a ridiculous amount of time. We can't picture it, we can't imagine it. Even if the smallest change was to occur every generation, it could easily lead to any organism becoming any other organism. I have lots more to say. Can I just push forward a little bit?
Yeah, sure. We can push it to 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what's the maximum for YouTube. I think it's somewhere around 10 minutes.
Okay. So. Okay, I just want to throw out, there are some proofs of evolution that we see now. Even before we had the techniques of genetics, which I really want to start talking about, but unfortunately we're running out of time. Homologous variation is a big one. Vestigial organs, which is us having appendixes, which are the organs that were formerly used by our herbaceous ancestors to digest large quantities of grass and other things that have large amounts of cellulose. Well, we don't really eat that much anymore, but we still have this organ. It's tailbone, similar things. Also animal development, in that as embryos, we kind of go through the one-cell, two-cell, many-cell stages, though that's kind of a little different. I just want to skip over to, for the longest time, genetics was actually used to disprove Darwinism. It wasn't until the 1930s and the 50s that we get this modern synthesis of Darwinism and genetics. And wait. Okay. Okay, I'll skip that. So then, there's lots more to talk about, obviously. It's a very complicated thing, and I think it's best described not as a theory, but as our lecturer said, a continual research project that's always undergoing more and more. And there's so many applications of this. One of the most unfortunate ones was social Darwinism, which led, in some ways, or at least supported the thinking of eugenics. Would Darwin have supported eugenics? Probably not. He didn't think that races of men were inferior or superior, and in fact race is a bad term when applied to human populations. The fact is, humans are very genetically similar. It shows that we went through a very small genetic bottleneck a long time ago, so almost all people are more similar to each other than, say, pigeons are to other pigeons. We're all very closely related. And as well, it's impossible to tell what variations will be good in the long run. You can't select for anything. It's always a continual interplay between environment and the organism. Things like morality, all those sorts of things are, in Nietzschean terms, almost not good or bad, but sorry, I'm just finishing up.
Okay.
But good or bad in relation to something else. Always in relation to the environment. There is no absolute, there was only this constant flux between the internal, whether it be genetics or what have you, and the external world. There is no absolute meaning in evolution. So, back again, I guess. I just want to talk more about genetics, really, and how this comes to support Darwinism. Well, it all started with Mendel. I'm not really going to talk about it too much, except that he noticed that there was different variable traits in the peas that he was growing in his monastery. And for the longest time, this was seen as the antithesis to Darwinism. But we now know that it is the mechanism for natural selection. In fact, some geneticists, and well, some biologists too, have gone so far as to say that genes are the things that are being selected for. it's always a question, what is the unit that's being selected for? Is it the group? Is it, say, the species? Are humans being selected for as a species? Is it the individual? Is it me that is being selected for or against? Am I doing well or badly, depending on how many kids I have? Or, and this is one of the more prevalent ideas now, I think, is it the gene that is being selected for? This is very much Richard Dawkins' theme in The Selfish Gene, which he published in the 1970s, I think, that natural selection acts upon the gene, and it is the gene that is the thing that is mutated, and also the thing that is almost eternal in some ways. It lasts much longer than the actual individual. It's not, obviously not eternal, but it's long enough for natural selection to act upon it. And this is the great thing we're seeing nowadays, is that in research we can actually see evolution happening now, in the present. It takes months, years, it takes a couple of reproductive cycles. It's not as long as Darwin thought. Darwin was very much concerned about this because in his time it wasn't known how long how old the Earth was. Cuvier and Lyell had some ideas about how old the Earth might be. I think Lyell thought that the same geographic processes that were working now in the world in his day, such as erosion and like the wind, water erosion, things like that, could shape the world, could have shaped mountains, really. Like, rivers could carve mountains given a long span of years. And he thought this was the mechanism for the way the world was. So that made it seem that the world is far older than creationists would have you believe, for example. But also, despite the fact that evolution does need a long time to come up with dramatic effects, we can see smaller things happening all the time. We can see populations of fish, for example, changing their color variations depending on the amount of predation that's going on in their ponds. It's quite incredible. Another thing about genetics that is really cool and very supportive of Darwinism is that Darwin said that we all come from one single origin of life, the single origin of life that split and spread. And there's no better illustration of this than the common genes that we all share. We share up to like 98% of genes with chimpanzees, but more than that, we share a large percentage of our genes, I think it's almost around 40%, with bacteria, for instance, with E. coli bacteria living in our guts. And also, the functionality of the gene is incredible. It's not just that this gene causes you to do this and this, it's that the same gene that causes us to be able to speak allows birds to sing, allows lions to roar, allows vocalizations in all kinds of animals. We're starting to see now more and more that it's not so much the genes that change, it's the regulatory genes. It's the things that switch on and off the genes.